Hi, my friend. Welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about leading through uncertainty. It's hard to imagine that it's almost 4 years ago now that I was in Newport News, Virginia, the second weekend of March 2020, preparing to take a flight to Connecticut for a speaking engagement there. And the world shut down. You remember it. You probably remember exactly where you were, don't you? I was in my living room talking with two individuals. One was the guest speaker that was supposed to come to my church that weekend, and the host pastor that was receiving me at his church that weekend. And all the world was abuzz from news stations, news platforms, publications, print, online, podcasts, radio hosts were talking about this novel and new disruption that we have come to know all too much as COVID-19. And it thrust us into a world of uncertainty. I'll never forget my employing organization at the time sending us emails to invite us onto an immediate, necessary Zoom conversation. And that conversation went probably like it did in your home and on your job. Listen, we're going to take these precautionary measures for the next several weeks, and then we'll check in. We did just that. 2, 3, 4 weeks went by. We came back and we said, okay, these measures will apply for another 4 weeks and another 2 weeks. And we were simply trying to manage what it meant to lead through uncertainty, informing our people, letting them know what to expect, what not to expect, while we ourselves were constantly trying to feed ourselves with information and insight and research. I mean, there were every week, it seemed like, conversations with physicians and doctors and immunologists and virologists and persons to try to provide a sense of guidance for what to do next. And this is the case with the leaders, that we will often come into times of uncertainty, and it still requires a certain type of leadership. That second weekend in March, when we were told that you can only host 50 people in your church, required us to communicate in a certain way. Then a few hours later, it was 10 people. And then a few hours later, before the sun had set on that Friday, you cannot host anyone in your churches. What do? The next weekend, same thing applies. I was in my living room. I opened up my computer. I pressed go live on Facebook. I offered a word of opening prayer, acknowledged, hey, listen, this is where we are, brothers and sisters. We'll keep you updated. I shared a message, probably to my members' delight, significantly shorter than normal, and we had closing prayer. We responded to it. And in so many different ways, we kept responding and shaping and building as your family and as your organization and as your community had to do. Wherever you lived through this COVID situation from, you adapted and adjusted to it all. I was in school at the time, and so my school had to adjust. We were no longer going to Boston for our intensives. We had to now go completely online, right? This is the case for life. This is the case for leadership. And I want to just give you two principles to keep in mind as you are leading through uncertainty and as you will have to lead through uncertainty. The first is acknowledge the uncertainty. I know the temptation is to feel as though you have to keep that type of information close to your chest, but let me let you in on something. Your people already know that we're in a season of uncertainty. We don't know how the quarter is going to end. We don't know how the year is going to end. We're not sure about this prospective partnership or this deal. We've heard conversations, but we don't know. We don't know if we're going to get a new hire. We're not sure about these adjustments that have been proposed, budget cuts or increases. We don't know. And I found that in leadership, one of the best ways to build credibility and to develop a currency of trust within your organization is to acknowledge the points of uncertainty. I'm not sure how we're going to go about doing this. I'm not sure how long this is going to last, but I want you to know that right now we're in a season of uncertainty. Now, at times it's easy to believe that acknowledging that will cause you to lose credibility. But denying it is actually what causes you to lose credibility, because it's often something that everyone can see. When you get out ahead of it, you've heard that statement before, and you're able to say, I see that we have a leak in the roof. I see that we have doors that need to be fixed. I see that we have pavement that needs to be repaved. I see we have potholes that need to be attended to. I see, and I'm now saying what I see. It allows your people to have a sense of relief that we do not have a leader that operates from a place of denial. Jim Collins, in his book, Good to Great, says the first responsibility of leadership is, say it with me, acknowledge reality. And if that reality for a certain season in your journey is uncertainty, it's okay to acknowledge that. And you want to pair acknowledging reality with adopting an inspiring tone. That is to say that whenever the realities that we're going through are uncertain, it's easy to let the organization develop into a derisive or destructive tone. The narrative tends to look back on days of yore. You can have a highly critical or volatile environment if you're not careful. But as the leader, in addition to acknowledging the season of uncertainty, we must adopt very quickly an inspiring tone. This is one of the things that attracted former President Barack Obama to masses of young adults, many of them millennials, who were looking for an inspiring voice. We were just coming out of a long season of uncertainty and wartime, and troops were still, at the time, really and truly, were still overseas, and it had been a long time of uncertainty, and we needed inspiration. And so what was the campaign slogan? Yes, we can. That was an inspiring tone. Now, what it didn't do was, it did not overlook the fact that we were about to go into, and in some ways were already in, a debt crisis, a financial crisis. Our markets were fragile. It didn't overlook the fact that there were questions that needed to be answered as to whether or not the war was coming to an end, whether or not troops were going to come home. It did not overlook the fact that many of the challenges that our students were facing in the inner cities had to do with some discriminatory practices, right? Didn't overlook these things, but it simply acknowledged uncertainty by following it up with an inspiring tone. Now, I want to be clear that when we say an inspiring tone, we're not talking about Disney songs to act as though everything is going to end happily ever after. But what it says is we have a tone that we adopt by default. Our personalities, our temperaments, our experiences in life can shape that. And as leaders over an organization, over a family, over a team, we have the opportunity, not just the responsibility, but the opportunity to be able to invest in the organization by saying, here's the tone that we will adopt. Not long ago, a member of my church said to me several times, Pastor, this is a difficult church. And I responded in kind. I said, no, it's not. They said, yes, it's a difficult church. You'll see. I said, no, it's not a difficult church. Now, backdrop to that, I just shared a message called When God Pushes Back. Exodus chapters 3 and 4, looking at the early experiences of Moses' call, burning bush moment. God says, Moses, it's time to go back to Egypt. Moses says, I ain't going back to Egypt. God says, Moses, come on, I have a plan, I have a purpose. It's time. And Moses is like, well, I can't speak. And what if they don't know who I am? And who do I tell them you are? And despite God's best efforts to win Moses over, Moses comes to the point where he's like, send somebody else. And God refuses to let Moses settle into that rehearsed narrative that keeps him at bay. So that was what I preached a few moments before this kind lady, well-intended, came to me to say, there are some difficulties in this church. But I kindly continued to push back against that because I wanted her to know, listen, we have a choice about the type of tone we adopt. And the type of tone we adopt will impact how we think, and how we think will impact how we see, and how we see will impact what we ultimately do. And if we are going to Egypt to say, let my people go, I need you to adopt a different tone, an inspiring tone. Same thing for you, my leader. As you're leading through uncertainty, acknowledge that. Let the people know you are aware that right now there are some features and factors about this leg of the journey. It has some uncertainty to it. However, here's the tone we are adopting. Yes, we can. Here's the tone we are adopting. God is the I am that I am. Here's the tone that we are adopting. We may not have full clarity right now, but it will come. And here are the steps we're going to take together to get there. There may be some difficult patches that we need to acknowledge, but we're not going to adopt those as our permanent identity. We're going to partner together because there is something worth pursuing. We're going to get through this together. We're not going to be naive and and act as though there aren't things that we need to acknowledge, but neither are we going to settle into a pessimistic environment. We're going to inspire one another. Let me know what you think about your current leadership opportunity to lead through uncertainty by acknowledging the uncertainty and adopting an inspiring tone. I can't wait to see you next time. God bless you. Peace.